Hi guys, welcome to our first podcast. Me and CJ, we've been researching the coronavirus and the effects on the economy and all sorts of different things relating to the coronavirus. So we decided to get together. We've been messaging each other all week, showing each other different articles, which has just been great because you cannot keep up with all this news by yourself. So we decided to get together and do a little podcast today. We do not have a name for the podcast yet, so if any of you listeners, any creative listeners have anything clever you can throw our way, we're probably going to be doing a couple more shows just about coronavirus. So put them in the comments if you think of anything clever. And just fair warning, we're probably going to be talking about some things that may be a little uncomfortable to some people, may cause people a little bit of anxiety if you're just listening to what you see in memes and what you see in mainstream media. There may be some things in this podcast that kind of demonstrate the seriousness of what's really going on here. And there'll probably also be a little bit of swear words, harsh language. So if you don't like any of that stuff, then feel free to tune out now. But wow, let's get started. I mean, what a crazy couple weeks this has been.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you think, CJ?
Oh, yeah, it's been nuts. I mean, these last couple days, we've seen numbers jump in the thousands per day.
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing that exponential effect kick in more and more every day, which is just, I heard there's this quote that says, like, one of the biggest, I can't remember exactly word for word, but basically says one of the biggest shortcomings of the human mind is the inability to understand the exponential growth of all sorts of different things. And that's basically what we're seeing here is, we see a couple thousand a day and then 10,000, and then I believe we're up to 30,000 or more in this
I believe 31,000.
Yeah, let's see. I got the website open right here. So let's see we'll start at the case growth. Because this is definitely one of the most interesting parts of this website. By the way, I'm using the Worldometers coronavirus website to keep track of all this. That's something CJ shared with me. The site I was using wasn't that good, apparently. Wasn't keeping up to date with everything.
Yeah,
so,
this one's pretty up to date. Point.
Yeah. So on March 7th, so that was just over 2 weeks ago. Well, actually, let's start way back here. Mid-February, we were getting 500 cases a day, 900 cases a day, 900, a couple 900s in a row, and then all the way up to March 1st, we see 1,900 cases in one day, and this is worldwide, by the way. So March 1st, and we kind of see that leveling around 2,000, and then March 7th, we're up to 4,000 per day. So, we see that couple hundred growth here, and then now we're growing by the thousands. And then just 3 days later, by March 10th, we're seeing 4,500. And then things really start to pick up. I mean, the curve was honestly pretty shallow there at first, but ever since March 10th, it's just been skyrocketing. I mean, one day we go from 4,500 new to 7,200 new, and then 8,000, 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, 15,000. 20,000.
We got to think, too, it's when people start taking it seriously. That's when people start doing testing, and then all of a sudden numbers start rising.
That's definitely one aspect of this is just the numbers of testing that we've been able to do or haven't been able to do in some cases. So 15,000, and then we go up to 20,000 the next day, 20,000 new cases the next day, and then up to 26,000 the next day, and then 30,000 March 20th. The most recent day on here, 30,000 cases in one day.
And now we're up to 31.
Yeah, definitely seeing a huge growth there. And this is kind of the problem with the way that people see this is because nobody really wants to take it serious until it's at our doorstep, infecting thousands of people. And with something like this, that's almost, you can't really have that mindset. You have to act first, act early, and excuse me there. And one thing I wrote in a Facebook comment or something is that this is kind of like putting out a fire. Like, if you got a whole batch of tinder, shit that lights on fire really easily, then and that fire starts on your pile of tinder, you've got a few seconds to get that thing out before the whole pile is lit, and then there's nothing you can do about it at that point.
Yeah, America's some pretty good tinder.
Exactly. Everything that's been stacking up as of late, and just yeah. I mean, if you look at this from the virus perspective, humans are just it's the perfect Tinder, just waiting to spread like crazy through all
millions of people in millions of places,
exactly.
like all hanging out together. I mean, it's just stores, work, hospitals, everything's just the easiest place for this thing to thrive.
Yeah, I mean, our society thrives on connection, and so does this virus.
Well, between that and, I mean, if you look at it now, I don't know if you've noticed at all or if you've been out and about, but I've seen stores doing that don't even have drive-thrus. They're making drive-thrus now just to keep people in their cars.
Really? Making drive-thrus?
Well, like I went to, or I was driving by, I believe it was Roomby, and they had cones up out front, and they were taking orders and running people food.
That is smart. I've seen like Uber Eats has a no contact option now where they'll just put the food at your doorstep.
Oh yeah, it's basically just deliveries and front doorstep. That's it.
Smart stuff. I know 2 weeks ago, not too many people was taking this very seriously, and now I've definitely seen a pretty big shift in public perception, and now it seems like the majority of people are definitely taking this seriously.
Well, yeah, and I mean, with the, I feel like the media doesn't help that at all, but then it's also the fact that, you got the president and the vice president every single day. They've been speaking, and almost every single day you see, every governor from every single state and leaders of every single country, it wasn't a big deal, and it wasn't something to take seriously, then there's no reason why entire countries would be shutting down and ruining their economy. And I mean, hell, that's my only issue with with places like China and India. I mean, India is just somehow behind that curve. I don't understand why their numbers are so low with them just being surrounded.
Yeah.
But
yeah, definitely. I hear a lot of people throwing around this idea that maybe this is like the government trying to force control over people, and maybe there is something to that, but I feel like something that people got to understand is that the shutting down of our entire economy is, as much as we don't like it, the government absolutely does not want to do that.
Yeah, they throw money at us.
Yeah, they profit from us going to our jobs and slaving away, and making them tax money and things like, and all the corporations do as well. Which I almost see the government and corporations as one entity basically at this point.
Oh yeah,
how interwoven they are. But yeah, they definitely don't. They're feeling way more pain than the normal person is at this point in time, at least. So something to keep in mind. There could definitely be some, trying to force control, and who knows where this is going to end up. But yeah, keep that in mind.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you got to see the fact that you have all these competitors and whatnot, different stores that are coming together and donating and trying to basically pull it together for the entire country to make it through this. I mean, it's not going to be a end of the month thing. It's going to be a 6 month, if not entire year thing until we have it the hold of a hold of the virus, let alone anything. But then on top of that, if you have a hold of it, then I mean, we're going to see lockdowns that go on for up to 6 months, if not longer.
Exactly. Definitely has the potential to become a very bad situation if people can't get food, or if people get sick at the essential workplaces. Then we'll get into that whole part a little bit later. I have some articles pertaining to that specific topic. But let's move on to the a little bit more about the cases while we're still on this website that's counting everything. So As of right now, we are seeing it 306,000 cases, which is just, if you're like, by the time you're listening to that, that's going to be totally different. I mean, I was just reading an article from like a day or two ago, and it was saying we're at 240,000. So this is definitely, like I said, we're going to be increasing by 30,000 plus. We'll be up to 40,000, 50,000. And eventually we're going to reach a point where our testing is going to be the difficult, the bottleneck in that equation that can't keep up with everything. And so 306,000 total and 13,000 deaths. And if you take those two numbers and put them together, the death rate doesn't look too bad. But it's, a case takes 3 weeks to 2 months potentially to fully play out. So you can't, and most of these cases are brand new, so you can't really put those two together to come up with a death rate. And we do have 94,000 recovered already, so that's good. That's, way higher than the death amount. Active cases here, this is a little bit more important. We have 198,000 people that are currently infected with it. And out of those, 95% of them are in mild conditions, and 5% of them are in serious or critical condition. So that's about 9,000 people. And I believe that all of those people would need an ICU bed, which that's one of the biggest problems we're running into with this virus is just the number of ICU rooms available, the number of ventilators available, and the number of staff
doctors.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I put myself in the shoes of those staff members, and I'm just glad that I do not work in that industry right now, especially because I'm hearing reports of shortages in the personal protective equipment, like the masks and such. Like, what if you were told to go work on a patient and you didn't have any of the proper equipment? That's a very hard choice you have right there.
Yeah. Well, and then what do? Wear some old gloves, or do you not wear any gloves at all? Like, do you take a chance of spreading it around, or do you protect yourself? It's just,
I know in Italy we're seeing a good amount of cases of doctors who have it and doctors who've actually died from it.
Yeah, I believe 2,000 cases.
Of medical staff that have it?
I believe so.
Wow, that would be a pretty shocking number if that's true.
Let me go double check that stat for you.
Yeah, see if you can find that. I'll keep going here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now this is a really well, actually, now that I think about it, none of these numbers can really be taken too seriously. But if all we have is data, so all we can go off is the official numbers. Likely these are way different, and that could mean a bunch of different things. That could mean, excuse me, that could mean we have way more undiscovered cases that would actually, if that's the case, then that means the death rate is actually going to be much lower by percentage if we're missing all these non-serious cases. But I've also heard that some governments are doing their best to keep their death count low, like possibly reporting the deaths. Because, I mean, thousands of people die every day, so you could easily put a couple of these deaths, mark them off as like a heart attack or mark them off as like a flu death or allergy reaction or, governments are doing all sorts of sketchy things like that. So none of these can be taken seriously. But where we sit right now, there's 107,000 cases that have had an outcome. And out of those, 88% have been discharged and are recovered. And keep in mind that a lot of the people that have recovered, actually, I don't want to say a lot. I don't know the exact percentages on this, but some of them do for sure have permanent lung damage and reduced lung functionality of around 20 to 30%. There's reports of people just walking down the street and getting winded just from a brisk walk, But the death rate, which I thought this would be going down as we progress, but the death rate out of 107,000 cases, 13,000 of those have died, which puts us at 12%. So we've seen a lot of numbers tossed around, some around 1%. I've heard as high as 7% death rate. Definitely varies a lot by country, but according to these numbers, we're sitting at 12% as of right now. Now, I don't think it's going to end up being that high, but yeah, just that's where we're at right now. So, and we're definitely seeing the if I scroll down here, we're seeing the total cases and total deaths graphs right next to each other. And, for the first, from January 22nd to February 22nd, we weren't really seeing that classic exponential curve shoot up that you see in exponential graphs. It was kind of going along. And I remember hearing reports in the media, maybe we're capping off, maybe it's rolling down. And obviously the media is probably trying to make things sound good. But ever since about March 2nd, we're seeing a very, very strong curve that basically shoots straight up that is very indicative of a exponential growth. And if you don't know what exponential growth is, that basically means it's not only growing, but the growth rate is also growing. So we're going from 10 to 20 to 40 to 80 to 160 to, it's doubling like that. So, death following the same kind of thing. All right, okay. Did you, you were looking up something, right? Did you find that?
Yep. It just says, as coronavirus cases jump, deaths surge in Italy, new figures show an enormous level of conjugation among the country's medical personnel. At least 2,629 health workers have been infected by coronavirus since the onset of the outbreak in February, representing 8.3% of total cases. That's just strangely alarming, because that means that even with all this protective equipment, you're seeing that many, medical workers.
Yeah, and they've
infected.
They've got to take time off. They can't. Well, actually, I wonder. I mean, I'm sure as of right now, they're pretty much sending those people home saying you can't work. I mean, you could possibly infect other patients. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get to a point, since a lot of these cases are mild and we're going to be desperate enough, if maybe they'll make some of those employees still work in only the coronavirus section of the hospital, because obviously everyone already has it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some desperate moves like that.
Well, and I heard it's almost like how some other viruses are. Like once you get it, once you're exposed to it, like you're not going to get it again, like right away or anything like that.
I've heard mixed things about that. Is that what's being reported now?
That's what I've read several different places, and I've heard on the news too as well, but it's not. I mean, it's something that I would see making sense, just because your body does build antibodies to it after you do heal. So, I mean, I was thinking maybe those medical workers that are sick would be actually quite valuable if we are able to heal them, and they would have the antibodies. And I mean, that's something that they should be studying on too, as well as people that are getting cured, like are finding to get better, like what differences in their lifestyle, or what are they getting, what kind of medications are they getting,
Exactly. That's a really good point. A lot of these medical people that get it now might mean that there's going to be a huge, surge of medical people that are basically immune to this later on as this progresses. And I've also heard that one of the treatments they're working on, I believe it's had some pretty good results, is the blood transfusion from people who've gotten it and they've produced the antibodies, and they can take their blood and purify it or something like that, and then give it to people, give them those antibodies, and it's been shown to have some pretty good effects. I think that's still in the works, though.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to testing, too, I mean, I sent you that article and they just announced it, too, that it should be available within the next few days, but it's just like a 45-minute test that tells you if you have it or not.
Yeah, because I believe it's like a 3-day wait right now, isn't it? Wow, yeah.
So, I mean, that would definitely bring up the rate, but then you also got to think how many of these tests are already manufactured if they're just being made, You're talking about manufacturing.
There's definitely
millions and millions of that same test.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the by country numbers here. And I mean, first thing that catches my attention right now is just the fact that we have caught up to Italy in our new cases per day. So Italy had reported, they only report once per day. I check this site like at least 10 times a day. But they report once per day, and they had 6,500 new cases today. And keep in mind, they're on a pretty strict lockdown right now. So, I mean, obviously it's going to be a lag behind because you can be asymptomatic with this disease for 2 weeks, maybe even more. So there's a bunch of people in quarantine right now that have it that don't know they have it, which is just such an unfair advantage.
They're just stuck.
Yeah, superpower. But what's crazy about Italy is just the number of deaths they're getting.
Oh yeah, 793. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's more than 10%. That's like 12%. I mean, they're the one who's ruining our number count here. They're the one bringing up the death percentage because they're just getting so much. And
you know, China and Italy, and it actually doesn't look too shabby.
Yeah, and you know, just for comparison, almost the same amount of new cases, but in U.S. we've only had 60 deaths. And like I said, I don't know how much I can trust these numbers.
Oh, you know what?
There could be a lot of manipulation, but that's what...
They may have an updated version of you.
Oh, maybe let me read.
Because it does. I've seen it update several times throughout the day, because I'm showing we have 7,304 new cases in the U.S. today.
Update, I'm at 7,686.
Wait, what?
Yeah, dude, wow, we are just racking up, and we're up to 84 deaths. I mean, still a very good percentage. That's sitting around 1%. But wow, so we are officially in the U.S. as of just a couple minutes ago, now getting the most cases out of any country in the world per day.
Which is did go both ways. We're testing people, which means at least we're knowing who has it.
Oh my gosh, dude, this just proves that it's everywhere now.
Oh yeah, dude, it's an infection. It's not something that goes away, and the fact that it could lie dormant for 2 weeks meant that there was an entire 2 weeks with and whatever before that the planet just basically did their thing. Like everybody was on planes, everybody was going on vacations, different countries. I know we have friends. I know your brother was on a cruise. Yeah,
Yeah, he was in Jamaica. Yeah. Jaden was on a cruise a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or even ago. But
that's what I'm saying. It was like what, February, January? February. Yeah. My birthday.
About a month. So yeah, it was going around at that time, but not quite the cases we're seeing now. But my brother right now is in Jamaica. I tried to convince him not to go last week. I was like, dude, all the stuff I'm hearing, I would not go if I were.
Oh, man.
But they're set on going, and they are flying back from Florida right now. And I'm thinking, like, with the way the airports are, I don't even want to really get in contact with them for 2 weeks at least.
I'm like, just out of curiosity, have you seen the prices of flights?
A little bit, yeah. $200 to Hawaii and shit like that.
Well, there's a bunch that are like pushed out, but like look right here, I got from New York to LA on JetBlue, $59.
What?
Right?
How does that even cover the gas, dude? Well, gas prices have tanked, so maybe that's part of it too.
I'm like, and that's like round trip.
Wow, dude. They really just want to fill seats. I've heard that they're doing this thing. I don't know if they're still doing it. I heard this maybe a week and a half ago when flights first started getting canceled, that they were sending what they were calling ghost planes, which is just empty planes filled with nobody, because the planes need to stay on their schedule and be where they told everyone they were going to be, and fill their slots or whatever they're called. So they were flying hundreds and hundreds of empty planes with nobody on it just to keep things running normal. I don't know if they're still doing that, though.
Well, we got to think. Well, I guess the airlines are probably starting to lay off people for sure.
Yep, wouldn't be surprised. Their stocks are tanking.
Las Vegas is gone. It's just a desolate ghost town. I actually just had one of my family friends actually just drove through Vegas, and she was saying that it was just desolate. All there is cops. Every couple lights there's a cop parked on the corner, and then you got a bunch of cops on bikes, and they're just going up and down. All the casinos are taped off. You can't even get inside of them.
Yeah, you don't want to be in a casino with this, touching everything, handing cards to each other and shit. So have they had a decent outbreak in Las Vegas, or is it just the tourism thing?
I don't know. You know what? I feel like it's just the tourism thing, and I mean, it makes sense to me, and I applaud them on that because, you know, that's where a lot of the money from the state of Nevada comes from. Yeah. Between that and marijuana dispensaries, which they are deciding to close, I believe.
Interesting. So before we move on past the numbers, I just wanted to say, so 7,600 new cases. That'll probably be past 8,000 before they close for tonight. But that, in my mind, I see two possible scenarios of this. One, the high numbers may be indicating of a maybe not such a bad thing. If we're seeing high numbers and low deaths, then maybe in the U.S. it's not going to be killing as many people as it is in Italy. Or possibly because of the 2-week asymptomatic period, the high numbers could mean that within 2 weeks we are in for some serious shit. So I see this going those two different ways.
Oh, for sure, because it's gonna. I mean, it's gonna like you were talking about the curve, and that's all they keep talking about is the curve. The curve. Well,
flatten the curve.
The curve does go both ways.
Yeah,
and you know it could go drastically either way.
Yeah, definitely.
So the current numbers, with the way it looks, it's definitely going to continue to go up, and I mean, things are going to be restricted as it goes throughout.
Yeah, I've heard estimates somewhere between 40% and 80% of the world population will probably get this before it's over.
Yep.
So let's see, last couple numbers, just so everyone knows, Europe is getting hit extremely hard. I want to say China's numbers, do not trust what's coming out of them. I do not think they shot up to 80,000 and then flatlined from there. That is just does not make sense in my mind. A population of 1.4 billion or something around there. I've heard estimates of those numbers being off by 1,000 times. The deaths and the total cases. It would make much more sense if about 8 million people get this, and if somewhere, several 100,000 people have died from it. And like I said, the government can fudge the numbers of the deaths because people die every day. So in Spain, they're getting hit
China's
hard.
The biggest economy in the world.
Yeah, exactly. They have an extensive propaganda branch of their government, specifically of the government, meant to spread disinformation. So they just cannot be trusted. I mean, I have nothing against the Chinese people at all.
No, not at all.
It's the Chinese Communist Party that's in charge that, case after case after example I've seen, they just simply want to appear their best and are just dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Germany, Spain, Iran, I don't believe their numbers either. I've seen some very possibly disturbing things. They seem to be in kind of the same boat as China, not being that honest. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's hundreds of thousands of cases there. France getting really hard. South Korea seems to be handling it pretty well with their testing. I know they were really on top of their shit. Really, we want to model it after South Korea. So I've heard they're implementing some pretty strict and draconian measures, things that we wouldn't really consider here in the U.S., like tracking on people's phones and tracking different cases and letting everybody see where the cases actually are. And and same with China, they locked people in their house and literally wouldn't let them leave. A lot of things that we're probably not going to see here in the U.S., but those things may actually help. The more strict countries that have less freedom, they may come out of this better than us.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you got to think China's been living like that. Everything's. I mean, they've even had a food shortage in China forever.
Yeah.
There's certain parts of China where they're just starving and they don't have anything. So I mean, with all that considered and the amount of people that are there, it's just like, you can't think that 80,000 is a correct number over a billion. They have over a billion people. And in comparison, you got to think the United States has 300 million?
350 million, I think, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so I mean, China's got us beat 3 times over. And you got to think you could throw China in the U.S., about 3 times?
Yeah.
So, there's no possible way. They're living on top of each other. Same thing with India.
Yeah.
And I can see the fact that India doesn't probably have the, the medical staff and everything set up to that point. And everybody, just same sort of deal. They do have a lot of poverty and whatnot out there.
Yeah. I think we're going to see a pretty big catastrophe in India because they were behind the curve, not taking it seriously. But I mean, in China, I'm hearing reports that their factories are open, and then I know in my mind that I cannot trust China, but I'm seeing all these reports that things are going back to normal, the economy is getting started again, and then just recently I heard, I believe it was Chris Martinson. I have a lot of my info comes from Chris Martinson, but he said that it's very possible that they're just running their factories because the way that people are checking in on the economy is satellite images from space, looking down on China, seeing how much pollution they're putting off. And just recently, I mean, we went through a month or two or whatever with very little pollution, which, you could argue is probably a good thing. But just recently, we've seen their pollution start to pick back up again. So, even that, that's something the Chinese government might do is just run the factories anyway, not making anything, just to put the pollution off, just so people think they're going back to work. Just things like that.
Well, between that and, I mean, not to be conspiracy theorist or anything, but with a country that does have, starvation, famine, and, that much poverty, and, all the issues they've been running in just with their population. I'm not saying that it would be a population control thing, but if they were to let it run for a little bit, then, at least it would take out a couple 100,000 people and free up a little bit of space. Not saying that that's something they would do, but, you got to think outside the box sometimes. Oh, yeah. Especially with that country. I mean, they limit how many babies people have,
Yeah. Yeah, and I could see us possibly making it and releasing on them, or I could see them making it, releasing on themselves. I could see Saudi making it and releasing on I could see, or like ISIS or something,
So I had a shot in the dark thought that I thought of that I have yet to actually read anything about or see, but we just recently, I want to say back in, I want to say September or November, maybe even before that, but we had record heat in the polar ice caps and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it melted a huge amount of the polar ice caps. Like, thinking outside the box, there's, viruses and bacteria and tons of stuff that's frozen in those ice caps that could have all of a sudden melted and released. Ocean got it, the animal in the ocean ate it, a bird ate that animal, and then somebody killed that bird or whatever, and it went from there. I mean, that's how anything spreads.
That's possible, definitely. But one interesting thing, I've seen a lot of people posting about the decrease in pollution and how it's probably good for the earth and everything. But there's this one, I've been researching climate change and environmental impacts pretty heavily lately. I was actually doing that before I got into the financial side of things. But what's a very interesting thing that I learned is called the aerosol masking effect, sometimes referred to as global dimming, which is basically, so when the whole thing behind global warming, which is, by the way, 100% factually proven, it's not up for debate anymore, is greenhouse gas
effect. If you debate it, you can go home now.
Yeah, exactly. The greenhouse gas effect from CO2, we can see that the pollution that humans are putting out is causing the Earth to warm up because the CO2 that humans emit is actually slightly different than the CO2 that's naturally occurring. So we can measure and see how much we've put in, and we can scientifically measure how much that's warming up the atmosphere. But a little bit of a side effect of burning fossil fuels, it also releases aerosols into the air, which actually have a reflecting aspect to them, where they actually form, like, you could kind of imagine it as like a shield around the Earth, and it's actually reflecting the sunlight as it comes in. So there's these two competing effects happening. One from the CO2 from the fossil fuels is absorbing heat, but also the aerosols are reflecting the heat. And so you might think, okay, well, if we're burning fossil fuels and it reduces aerosols, then, we'll just keep doing that if it's reflecting the heat. But the biggest difference is CO2 lasts hundreds of years, if not thousands of years in the atmosphere. And aerosols only last a few weeks where they fall out of the atmosphere and we lose that global dimming effect. So a lot of people would think if we reduce our pollution, it's going to immediately start having a positive effect. But actually, because of the aerosol masking effect, when we reduce our industrial output by as much as even 30% or so, we're going to see a huge spike in temperature when all of these aerosols fall out of the air. So long term, yes, we do want to reduce fossil fuel emissions to help, but short term, when we do that, we're potentially going to see a 1 degree Celsius increase, 2 degrees Celsius increase, and those are big numbers when we're talking about average temperature of the Earth. So that's something to consider. Is we're likely to see that, and you mentioned the polar ice caps melting. That could very well be from this global reduction in manufacturing and fossil fuel use.
Yeah, for sure.
So I say, so you have an article about Australia. Why don't you get into that a little bit? I do have to pee again, so I'll be right back in like 45 seconds.
Alrighty. So it looks like we do have a pretty live update. Well, I guess when I had originally caught it, I even told Jerry about it. It's only about 46 minutes old. It was just updated 46 minutes ago. But it's saying that the Australia government has actually announced all non-essential travel must be canceled. But on top of that, they are agreeing to give each one of their citizens a payout every fortnight, which I did not know, as Jerry did not know either, that a fortnight is apparently 2 weeks. But let's see here.
All right, I'm back. You can do it.
Like, where did that whole... Oh.
Yeah, you're saying Australia just started lockdown, and this is like something that just barely happened like less than an hour ago. That sounds like.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I was just trying to find the exact number of how much they were going to be giving per citizen.
Oh yeah, I remember you said like
a fortnight,
$1,000 every fortnight or something.
And I mean, fortnight is 2 weeks.
Yeah, figured that out.
Future reference, Google cleared that one up for me. But yeah, the fact that the entire country, if you want to call it continent,
yeah,
of Australia is just shutting down too. That means we're most likely not too far away when you see our numbers compared to,
oh yeah,
some of these other countries, with the way Italy jumped, and now we're jumping over Italy. Australia is not even at that point yet.
Yeah, I'm looking at Australia. They've only got 1,000 cases. But, if I put myself in their shoes, they're probably seeing what's happening around the world and hopefully thinking, all right, let's get out ahead of it,
Oh, yeah, the earlier the better.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately.
I wonder, population-wise, how much they've got compared to us. Looks like per 1 million population, they have 42 cases per 1 million. And right now we are at 82 cases per 1 million.
Well, so, 82 went up.
Yeah, we're definitely way far ahead of them. So my personal opinion is we should be totally locked down right now in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
But so far as I know, I think I actually have a article about this.
I was going to say, one of my back and forth issues too, which people would argue is a good thing, is with them opening stores for elderly, an hour early and whatnot to get supplies. But in return of doing that, you're basically just letting every single person that could, possibly be infected, or the most vulnerable, basically walk around a store and mother-in-law was telling me that her friend was lined up all the way around Smith, and they just had a huge line of people that were just seniors.
Yeah.
And I mean, how much are they, how much are they disinfecting these grocery stores beforehand? Are they walking around with a bunch of Lysol?
Yeah.
Or are they spraying the whole thing down, It's just, and with them doing that, I mean, I think if they were going to go drastic measures, like, let's start divvying stuff up now. Like, all these companies are going to lose tons of money anyways at this point. Let's start delivering groceries to houses, give every house this, divvy it out. And I know that's very socialist of me, but also with, a pandemic going on, it's something that, a global pandemic, it's something that needs to be done to just keep everybody at bay,
Yeah, I think we're going to see quite a bit of socialist things popping up here as far as giving people money, giving people free stuff. But yeah, I definitely worry about the employees at the stores. I mean, they're probably in damn near as much danger as the healthcare workers are.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I even thought about going to work at Smith's because they've basically told me to come back. I worked there before, but I was like, Yeah, I work in the food industry now, and I haven't worked in 2 weeks.
Yeah, front lines right there. I wonder what type of job opportunities we're going to see, or maybe not even job opportunities, but just like volunteer opportunities we're going to see if this gets as bad as I'm thinking. But I like the delivery idea that you said there. I think that maybe hire people with their own vehicles, and they go to the store and everyone's got gloves on and masks and sanitizing everything, and they just pick up and go drop off, and then you don't knock on their door or anything, you just drop off, and they come out and grab it, and then hopefully they have the necessary stuff to sanitize, because the spread is not going to be slowing down until we really limit social interaction. And man, the more I learn about this, the more it's just like seems like such a big problem, because let's say even if we social distance enough to where we damn near stop this thing, as soon as everything opens back up again, you still have a whole population of people that have no herd immunity to this, and now they're likely to be exposed, and now we start from ground one again, and everybody's under lockdown again.
And on top of it, all those people are just broke.
Yeah,
they've been staying home the whole time, and now they're getting introduced back into society. Not like it's like a prison sentence, but they're being reintroduced back to regular life. And as that starts to happen, there's that one apple that wasn't disinfected or whatever that that little girl is going to eat, and she's going to get it and go to the park and play with a bunch of kids, and then it just starts spreading again.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the domino effect.
Yeah.
I guess like hurricane domino effect.
I have an article that's relating to this. I was going to wait till the end because this is some of the more dark news, because everyone thinks this can be a 2-week thing, maybe 1 month max. And we really just are not sure of that. So let me go ahead and read a little bit of this article. So just as sea sickness abates, once you can see the shore, the disruptions that the country is now experiencing would be easier to manage if we knew they would end soon. The community isolation effort happened remarkably fast. Within days, whole communities all but closed down, and earlier this week, the federal government finally recommended the same. On Thursday, Governor Gavin Newsom ordered the entire state of California to stay at home until further notice. But the way the crisis ends will be far more muddled. This isn't going to be a one all-clear signal, and certainly not anytime soon. As the days and weeks in isolation go by, and the shock of what just happened turns into family time is overrated, people will become more insistent on knowing two things. When will the pandemic end, and when can we go back to normal? Those questions have different answers, and the answer to the latter, far from being purely a scientific decision, will be guided by ice-cold moral and political calculations that nobody wants to discuss out loud. From a public health standard, the pandemic will not end for another 8 18 months. They say that so blunt right here. Like I've heard up to 18 months. But in this article from the Atlantic, they just straight up say will not end for another 18 months.
Not for up to.
No, it just says will not end for another 18 months.
Yeah, well, then they know.
Yeah.
Somebody knows something.
Yeah. Continuing here, the only complete resolution of vaccine could be at least that far away. Keyword at least. I've heard, anywhere from 12 months to 18 months, and even those would be like record-setting times. But continuing, the development of a successful vaccine is both difficult and not sufficient. It must also be manufactured at a huge scale, distributed and administered. You got to give it to everyone as well. Until that happens, as recent reports from the U.S. government and from scientists at London Imperial College point out, we will be vulnerable to subsequent waves of the new coronavirus, even if the current wave happens to ebb. And that really just hits the point of, actually, I think down here a little bit lower it says somewhere later in this article, I don't want to really keep reading, but it says later in the article that the whole telling people 2 weeks kind of thing is just basically a way to break the bad news. Because you can't tell everyone right now, everything's shut down for 3 months,
That's how you start craziness,
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest factors involved in this is how are people going to react? I mean, we've seen people react in not the best ways so far as hoarding and toilet paper especially, which I feel like I've seen enough jokes about the toilet paper on
buy a bidet.
Starting to get a little old. But yeah, we've seen people react bad. I mean, imagine if things really start to get on thin ice, how will we see people react?
You think you're going to have trouble finding toilet paper? I mean, hell, try your produce. Like, fresh produce eventually is going to be scarce if it goes on for, anywhere over the next 3 months. If it goes past that, all these stockpiles of produce and whatnot, like, they're not going to want to cross borders. They're not going to want to drive trucks across borders. Like, they're not going to want to import stuff from other places. It's just going to, and there was one of the first big speeches that when Trumpy was on, and that's when he made the mistake and said, well, we're not going to be accepting anything from China. And that's when everybody was like, wait, what the hell? Because, I mean, it was like, wait. No, you're, like, screwing us right there. You're not going to accept anything from them? Yeah. Then he came back and said, we took that the wrong way. He didn't say that. He just meant that he wasn't taking anybody from China. But anyways, directly when it comes time to the, being able to live on surfaces, like, there's certain clothes that it can live on longer, materials, when it comes down to foods and, clothes, building materials, like everything, and, a huge amount of materials outsourced for the U.S. So the fact that, like, either we're not going to get anything, which is going to raise the prices of everything, or make everything super scarce, or we're going to continue to get it, and then it's just going to continue to spread.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest long-term fear is I feel like the first 2 months, 3 months maybe will be kind of the same kind of happy-go-lucky mood that I've been seeing of people in Italy where they're all playing instruments on their balcony and people figuring out fun activities for their kids but yeah, like you said, if things stop crossing the border, if we stop getting food from places or necessary supplies, which I feel like the whole global economy is shutting down right now, and it really reveals our just-in-time delivery system. It reveals that while it may be efficient and profitable, it is not resilient. Our whole system of globalization and outsourcing everything, it's great for big companies to make a lot of money, but when disaster strikes, it really shows that the whole house of cards is a fragile system stacked up that may or may not be able to survive something like this. And, we'll probably learn a lot from this as to how to become more resilient as a nation and as a world. But yeah, only time will tell with that.
I think I'm okay with that.
No, I said only time will tell with that.
Oh, I thought you said, I think I'm okay with that. I was like, okay, Jerry, I'm seeing another side of you.
That's fine. I'm totally fine. like that meme with the dog sitting in the fire, being like, everything's okay.
Yeah, like it's fine. It's just what this happens.
Yeah. So do you have another article you want to go to? I've got a bunch here I can go from.
I had one here that's it's a CBS News article just about it says why India may discover tens of thousands more coronavirus cases.
Yeah.
It just says India's government is facing criticism for the relatively low number of tests it's administered to detect cases of the new coronavirus, raising fears that tens of thousands of patients may be undetected. India has only tested about 12,000 people. 12,000 people in the second most populous country in the world.
Yeah.
And they have over 1 billion people. 12,000, that's pocket change. That's like, like 12,000 people, like they could lose 12,000 people and they wouldn't notice in that country. Like, that's just a lot.
I know. There has been reports of like possible the chemicals needed for the test. They may be having a hard time getting their hands on that. I don't fully blame them in a way because it's probably a pretty hard thing to manufacture a bunch of tests. But from here on out, they need to get their shit straight for sure.
Well, and you got to think too, like I always say, like with the AIDS epidemic and I don't know, like swine flu and all these other things. Like we've sent the United States and the UN has been there to send support to other countries. At this point in time, like in my lifetime, I have never seen it to where not one other country is like, "Hey, let me help you." Yeah. Like, nah, I'll find a cure, but I'm gonna do it from over here. Like, you guys figure your shit out, we'll figure our shit out, and we'll move on there.
Yeah, and a lot of like the masks and plastic gloves, and I'm sure all that comes from China or India.
Oh yeah,
which really just puts us at a huge disadvantage.
Right?
In the U.S., like it's such a simple, basic thing, but with a lot of that stuff we probably just don't make here anymore.
Yeah, which is, I mean, hell, it's almost sounding like communist socialists, like hell, we should be making a lot of this stuff here. We should not be relying on other countries for our medical needs, definitely. But, I mean, that's what it's going to end up being, if we're looking at up to 18 months, if not more, after that, then, we're going to start seeing, when do you expect to see a new iPhone, like, that's not something that's going to come out anytime soon. Like, or like same thing with anything. It's going to temporarily put a lot of things on hold. Like when it comes down to technology, I mean, cars, like who wants to invest in a brand new airplane right now? Like, nobody's going to be building any airplanes with let alone a new one. Like same thing with cars, it's going to tumble down. I mean, each country suffers, it's going to make another country suffer.
Yeah.
I mean, India's got, they said that India should be conducting at least 10,000 to 20,000 tests per day. It has the capacity to conduct 100,000 tests per day. So they're able to test 100,000 people per day. They've only tested 12,000.
Yeah, so that shows that, which a lot of countries have been in this same boat where they really just don't want to know. That I've heard the don't test, don't tell kind of as a policy that a lot of countries are taking because this whole thing is everyone's economy is a confidence game. You've got investors from all across the world looking to invest in whatever potential economy there is, and if they see that you're having issues with something, everyone's going to pull back, and that's going to cause your economy to crash, which is an important thing. I definitely don't want to downplay that and say, that they should just immediately jump on the side of testing and everything. There's this balancing game going on of, do we go full force and admit how bad it is and then crash the economy, which could potentially cause people to die. If the economy crashes hard enough, that may have really bad effects in and of itself. But yeah, I feel like now we're to the point where basically everyone's economy has crashed. I know ours has. Europe's getting hit super hard right now. Their currency's losing a bunch of value. I feel like it's now to the point though where everyone's just got to test. Everyone just got to shut down everything as quick as possible. Everything's already crashed. Let's just get this over with, get it on with.
Yeah, basically it's just it's one of those things that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think like you were saying, just easier it is for people to come to terms with it and just like, okay, let's let's dig down deep. Let's figure out what we're gonna do from here.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess since we touched on the economy a little bit, maybe now would be a good time I can jump in with a little bit of this economy news. So some really big moves we're seeing in all across the stock market. All commodities are losing value. All currencies are being affected. I've got the oil price pulled up right now. This is the WTI oil price, which I only recently started looking into. I heard some people on podcasts talking about it, and before this whole thing happened, we were sitting in the mid 60s per barrel of oil. So a barrel of oil is I believe like 42 gallons. So $60 for 42 gallons, that ends up being like $1.50, and then they sell it to you, the customer, for like $2. That all makes sense. But I remember seeing a couple weeks ago, I made a post about this. It dropped from 60 something to 30 something, and I was like, "Whoa, this is a huge move." This and the oil is one of the biggest indicators of what's going on in the economy and production and productivity, and it's just a huge indicator. But just recently, we've dropped down to $19.84 for a barrel of oil. So that's like 50 cents per gallon of oil. And that's not a good thing. A lot of people will hear that and be like, "Oh, sweet, really cheap gas." Hopefully, we'll see some cheaper gas. But basically, what's going on here, from my understanding, I'm obviously not an expert. I don't think we said that. We probably should have said it at some point.
Oh yeah, we don't claim any expert or expertise.
Yeah,
we're not doctors.
Yeah, but from my understanding of what's going on here is there's a couple different factors. One is there's a war or a trade war, a price war.
Yeah, oil trade war.
Yeah, between Saudi and Russia. They're both trying to see who has the bigger dick and who can make the cheapest oil and still turn a profit, which I'm pretty sure they're both losing money at this price. But basically what they're doing is they're both ramping up production as much as they can to flood the market with oil, which if you understand supply and demand, if you have way too much supply, then the price is going to plummet. So
there is no demand.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other side of this equation, is demand has absolutely tanked since this whole thing started. I heard, I haven't really seen numbers on the demand lately as this is growing to a global phenomenon, but in China, a couple weeks ago, demand was down like 30 or 40%, and they use, millions of barrels of oil every single day. So if I had to guess, I know we were using around 105 million barrels per day globally, which is just crazy to think about. We're producing that much oil every single day, but I think that dropped to somewhere around 90 or 95 is probably where we're sitting now. And Saudi and Russia both ramped their production up, so there's this huge disparity of how much oil is being produced versus how much we're actually using. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on, and is very bad for the U.S. economy, very bad for shale producers. Part of what people are talking about, this is a Saudi war versus Russia, but America is getting hit the hardest, and they're honestly really pissed off at us because we've actually become the largest oil producer in the world here in America. because we've been running, because we've been running these shale companies at full production, and it's such an inefficient business. We need like $50-$60 a barrel just to break even. And so we've just been printing money and using tax subsidies to fund these shale companies. And there's so much debt waiting around these shale companies that this is one of the landmines we need to watch out for as this economy crashes, because there's pension funds invested in these oil markets. There's 401ks invested in it. There's all sorts of other different money that I don't understand really. But if a lot of these guys need to go bankrupt because, I mean, it costs you $50 to produce and you're selling it for 19, the only reason you're still there is to keep guys employed. And every barrel you produce, you're losing money.
So just as you were talking, I just decided to pull it up, and it's down over 50%. ExxonMobil is down over 50% in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So at one point they were at 73, like $73.09 a share, and now they're down to 32.47 a share. So just, like you were saying, to put that into perspective, that turns around and it does put a shot on the American economy, but that's also jobs. That's all the above. There are a huge amount of jobs in the oil fields.
Yeah, I think all of the oil companies, probably worldwide, have all taken a massive hit. Potential buying opportunity to think of in the future, from what I've heard, if you are an investor. I would personally not recommend buying anything in the stock market for at least a couple months until we have a much better idea of where this virus is going. I do not
claim to be a professional stockbroker.
Yeah, that's not to say that nothing will go up. We may see huge gains in the stock market. I mean, even in a week or a month, or because we are just printing ungodly amounts of money. I would not be surprised. Huge spikes out of nowhere, and everyone's like, "Oh shit, I need to get back in the market." And then, oh man, it's just
they tank again, and then they just throw money just the same way they threw $1 trillion. Just threw it at the market. Didn't do any damn thing.
Yeah, it's so confusing to try and understand these bailouts. I mean, I don't know exactly where the money's going or how they're doing it, but I've heard numbers thrown around of like $3 trillion has already been created, through repo markets or through quantitative easing or buying treasuries and just all sorts of weird little backdoor ways they have to throw money into the economy. But if you look at it, it looks like, oh, they're just giving them a loan, or, oh, something like that. But then if you really know what's going on, it's like, oh, they literally just typed money into their account that they don't have to pay back, that did not exist before.
Well, exactly. What's that do to the U.S. dollar?
Yep. Could potentially tank, and this is a perfect segue leading into, I've got the U.S. dollar open right here, which, based on everything we just said, you would think that the U.S. dollar would be tanking. But as a matter of fact, about a week or two ago, it reached a minimum. The dollar index was about at 94, 95, and people were starting to think, okay, maybe this is where it goes down. By the way, it kind of sits around 95 to 100, just on average, just so everybody knows. But as of late, we've been shooting way up, and now we are at 102.8, which I believe is a high for, a decent amount of time. We have not been this high. But the thing about the dollar index is it doesn't tell you how much purchasing power a dollar has. All it tells you is how strong it is compared to other currencies. Mm-hmm. So if this is high, that basically means that other currencies are collapsing, or I don't know, collapsing is probably a strong word as of right now. There has been some pretty big moves in
declining.
Yeah, there's been some pretty big drops in the Aussie dollar and the pound, which I believe is UK or England or whatever. So those are, and that's the thing about the dollar, is we're printing tons of it. It's the world reserve currency, but the way that people say it, it's the least dirty shirt in the dirty laundry pile. Like,
yeah,
it's not. It doesn't have good fundamentals to it at all. But when you compare it to all the other money printing going around in the world,
oh yeah, exactly,
it's potentially the strongest.
No doubt.
So that we may see that go up way more. I mean, there's all sorts of really technical things that I don't fully understand that's going on in here. from my basic perspective, is there's kind of two forces pulling the dollar right now. There's the money printing, which people know will pull the value of the dollar down as we increase the money supply. Then each dollar becomes less and less valuable. But there's also, I don't fully understand all this, but there's something called all this dollar-denominated debt in different countries, where they've taken out loans and done all these leveraged buyout bets, where they've basically taken out loans in dollars. And then now, because their currency is dropping, now the dollar loan is becoming more of a burden on them. So they all of a sudden they want to pay that off now because the dollar's rising and their currency is decreasing. So this is kind of creating a false demand for dollars, which is bringing it up. But yeah, it's a very complex puzzle that I don't want to pretend I understand or anything. So yeah, very, very interesting things happening in currencies. I would not be the least bit surprised if we see one or several currencies just go the way of Venezuela, of just completely losing all their value, going into full-on hyperinflation, where it takes $1,000 to start buying a sandwich, and then it becomes 10,000, and then it just becomes so pointless to where it's like you have $1 million and it's just worth nothing, basically. Very well could happen, but the dollar is probably, like I said, the world reserve currency. But that pisses a lot of people off because like Russia and China are really mad that we have the world reserve currency, because everybody has to accept it, but we can print as much of it as we want. So it gives us this huge unfair advantage. And there's some rule where like people have to trade oil in dollars or something like that. There may be some loopholes, but essentially you have to buy oil in dollars. So it just gives us this huge advantage. So there's basically China and Russia and all these countries that want us to fall, want us to crash and burn. Whether we will or not, we will see.
Yeah, time will only tell. I mean, we're just at the beginning.
Did you have another article you wanted to go to now?
I think I covered it. Yeah, I think I've got them all covered. I was just checking out stuff on. Get me looking at the gear.
I guess I do have a bunch more articles here, but now I think it'd be a good time of possibly talking about what's happening in the gold and silver markets and Bitcoin. So that's gold and silver and Bitcoin are basically real money. All of this dollar and currencies, and they're what people call fiat currencies, which means there's nothing backing them whatsoever. Or as some people would say, the only thing backing them is men with guns or military. So basically, we have the strongest military, so we're the world reserve currency, something along those lines. But so gold and silver are an asset, basically. And and Bitcoin, all the cryptocurrencies, they've all tanked with this economy too, which scares a lot of people away. But, a lot of people have been selling gold to make up for their losses in the stock market. But personally, I've invested in a little bit of physical silver and physical gold as kind of a hedge against possible currency collapses, possible inflation. Gold has held its value for 5,000 years. It's never really lost its purchasing power. If you look at the dollar a couple hundred years ago or whenever it first started, it's lost 98% of its value since it first came out. So there's only 2% of its value even left. So if you're looking for something to get in on, because I think we're in for a pretty life-changing event coming up here, possible currencies, not going through some really rough times. If you want to get yourself a little bit of gold or a little bit of silver, I would think that would be a good idea, or possibly get in on some Bitcoin or Ethereum. They're all very low right now.
They're all pretty low, yeah.
Yeah, and there's potentially a huge surge of money that could rush into those and make them go to, very high points. I mean, the way I see it is with gold and silver, probably Bitcoin kind of fits in the same category, is there is a little bit of downside that could still happen. Gold's currently sitting at 1,488. We could see that drop down to maybe even 1,000 or so, but the potential upside on all of these is almost immeasurable. I mean, if we go through such a period where the dollar loses most of its value, then you can't even measure gold in dollars anymore. You can't even measure Bitcoin in dollars because the dollar could potentially go into hyperinflation. So the potential upside and the insurance aspect of these type of things makes me think that now is a pretty good time to own those type of things.
Well, yeah, and they're one of those things that, since the beginning of, it's the oldest currency, gold and silver,
Yep.
diamonds, precious stones, I mean, even, there was a time where salt was actually more, cost more than gold.
Really?
But, yeah, just because it wasn't, there is parts of the certain countries where there was no salt. They were, so like people would literally just have bricks of salt and they would use that to trade. And there was a time where there was like a shortage and they actually even traded salt for gold.
Oh, wow. Edible money. Imagine if gold was edible.
Well, because it was just like a fancy thing. It was
Yeah.
just one of those things like, ooh, oh, you have salt? Ooh.
Exactly.
Like, it was like a showing of wealth almost.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it shows that anything's possible, but I mean, there wouldn't be such a fluctuation on gold and silver with, at least another, 1,000 years, and we have some crazy space stone that's more valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely will hold the purchasing power. I mean, stocks, who knows what's going to happen? Dollar, who knows what's going to happen? Gold, you got a pretty good idea that it's going to maintain some value. But, let's see, nothing I can think of about the economy. I don't want to get into anything too technical. We probably don't have too many economy freaks listening to this, but I thought that would all be some interesting stuff to touch on. But moving on here, I've seen this pop up a couple places on Facebook. I actually Googled it just before we started to see if I could find an article on it, but I haven't been able to find an article, so I cannot confirm if this is a true thing or maybe this is something that happened years ago or something, but there's a picture here on Facebook of San Diego, and the street here is just lined with what looks like tanks or some sort of military vehicle, just totally lined with it. And it says, the comment here is, San Diego today, tanks locked and loaded. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on here, but it looks like maybe the National Guard is maybe positioning themselves to be of service in this, maybe by setting up testing centers or maybe some type of preventing civil unrest. Maybe they're there as kind of a, yeah. And like I said, I don't even know if this is a real thing, but have you seen anything like that?
I've found the video. Like, give me a second.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's see what's going on with that. Yeah, I know that I've got another article here.
There is a military base down near San Diego, and they do a lot of military, what would it be, tests, or they just run drills and whatnot.
Oh.
So they do have a lot of that, but I'm trying to find, let's see this.
Yeah, and I couldn't find an article on it, so yeah, this could very well be like a test they did months ago or something, and it's just getting thrown around Facebook. I've seen some things like that where it's like, if we take it into the context of coronavirus, this is very freaky, but if we take it out of the context of coronavirus, it's probably not as freaky. But as you're pulling that up, I have something really close here. Apparently there's the military, this is confirmed, the military is setting up inside of a FedEx in what state is, in Maryland. They're setting up in Maryland. There was a video of this girl just totally freaking out about all the military vehicles pulling into FedEx. But according to this article, they're setting up a testing site there, so that makes it sound a lot more reasonable. If the National Guard is just getting in just so they can help out with tests and stuff, that makes a lot of sense to me. As long as it's not some type of martial law, that would really make me nervous.
Gosh. Oof.
Do you
mind if I give you a call in just 1 second? Just had a emergency text message.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. I will just put this on hold.
Okay, I'll I'll send you this link of that video just so you can see it, because it honestly does look like San Diego.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, give me a call back. All right, we are back. So what were you about to go over?
Yeah, so you were talking about the tanks down in San Diego.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure that out, and I have located said video. It's a Twitter video, so I mean, it's not something that I would find too reliable, but as well, it does look like downtown San Diego from my standpoint, and I have never seen tanks going through the streets at all. You know, they do normal military exercises down there on the beach and whatnot, but not even with that many tanks. I mean, I'm talking probably a good 100 tanks.
And it's like full-on tanks, like with the cannon up top and everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can zoom in a little bit.
Does it say what they're doing there or why they're there? Anything like that? That just seems so strange to me.
It says the tanks have arrived. Hashtag San Diego.
Like,
it's
why?
March 20th.
Like, why, if you're the military, why open with the tanks? You know, that's the finale right there. Send in something a little more gentle, but I don't see why you would need tanks.
I mean, yeah, they're looking like straight up tanks. They got cannons in the front. I mean,
and this is like recent, like the date on the video.
This was March 20th. Yeah, it's already got 1.5 million views. Replies: how long have you lived in San Diego? Bases all over the state. Military equipment moves all over by road and rail regularly. I'm like, I'm and yeah, well, everybody's saying that they moved by the railroad system. I've personally never seen that, but
interesting. Yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of toss that in the I don't know.
Yeah, that'll be one of those things. Yeah, I was gonna say too, to be determined, but also, you know, you gotta take into account things like, you know, California does have the 7th biggest economy in the world as a state.
Yeah.
As well as, you know, the population that Los Angeles has a higher population than Utah, than the entire state of Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Just the city of Los Angeles. Like, you got to think the population-wise, you know, California is, I believe, the populous state. The most populous state. I don't know if it's the most by per capita, but it's definitely the most populous.
Oh,
I mean, if they're going to have to control people, I mean, they're already on lockdown. It's a $100 fine if you're caught outside, basically.
Oh my gosh.
They class A or class B. I think it's a class B misdemeanor. Yeah, you get a ticket. All the above.
Wow, I mean,
if you're outside for any other reason other than going to the store or going to work, and you have to be a worker in the medical field or work at a grocery store, or it needs to be an essential job, basically, is what they've said.
Yeah, and then I think we're going to see that same thing be implemented in a lot of different states. The most recent one I've heard is Illinois, that just barely issued to them. I know New York is doing it. They've got a huge case count. I would not be surprised if we see pretty much the whole nation doing that before the end of next week.
Oh yeah, it's something that, you know, it's funny because, you know, during Trump's speech, I don't know if I can't even remember if it was today or yesterday. I actually watched them all and they kind of blur together and melt together. But
yeah,
he was talking about how there's no need to fear an entire country lockdown. And as he was saying that, I was laughing, and I'm like, we're about 2 weeks, if not less, of an entire country lockdown, because you can't just shut down, like, you know, certain states. You can't just be like, okay, so we're going to shut down California and New York because they have the most. I mean, you have cases in all 50 states at this point, like, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely spread all around, and at this point, you can't take anything Trump says seriously anymore. I mean, if you've been paying attention to how he's been talking the past month, I mean, he's always about 2 weeks behind of where he needs to be. You know, he's saying he used to say like, "Oh, this is a flu. This is not a big deal." You know, and then recently he's starting to take it more seriously. But basically, he's always just a little bit behind the curve of what. And if he says something's not going to happen, then keep your eyes peeled, because that means there's a good likely chance it is going to happen, and he's just trying to keep everyone calm. Mostly keep the markets calm, keep the economy calm. And like I said, I don't fully blame him for that, because we do need to do our best to prevent this economy crash from getting any worse.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's going to be, essentially getting through it nicely. I mean, it's my analogy that I would put it is like, landing a plane without a landing gear. You're still going to want to have it in pieces at the end, and there's going to be some damage.
Yeah,
but you want everybody to get off okay.
Yeah, that's a good example. You want to at least land on the landing strip.
Yeah, you want to make it on the strip.
Yeah, not slam it into the side.
Don't want to explode. I mean, it's you're gonna rip up the bottom of the plane. It might be a rough landing.
Yeah,
but as long as we all make it.
Yeah, hopefully the plane will live to fly another day after a little bit of repairs.
Yeah.
But okay, let's go on to this next article. I know we're going for a really long time. Hopefully we've got some listeners that are in for the endurance game, because this is a long podcast. But
I mean, you'd all be quarantined in a couple of weeks anyway. So
if you've got some free time quarantine, go ahead, check this out. Check out our future shows. I'm really enjoying this one. I think we're in for some more shows for sure.
Yeah, this podcast brought to you by In-N-Out Burger. Still open.
Really?
Yes, regular hours. Drive through.
Oh, is that where you work, or?
No, I just went there recently, and I was like, hey, I called them before because I was like, are you guys open? And they're like, yeah, regular hours.
Yeah.
And they were just as happy as could be, so, shout out to In-N-Out.
Free plug.
Starbucks was closed.
I'm sure a decent amount of restaurants are still open, but we're here in Utah, by the way, if you're listening from somewhere else. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing places like that close down, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, Trolley's still open, Trolley Wing Company.
Now, you go into that place, right?
You cannot go in at this point.
Oh.
They're serving people, and they're also giving everybody 50% off wings if you've lost your job because of the coronavirus.
Nice. See, that's one aspect I think I'm already seeing a lot of, and it really kind of lifts my spirits. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, is just people giving away extreme discounts, giving away free things, being super helpful. I was thinking maybe Disney Plus or Netflix, maybe they'll be giving away free service or something. I bet we're going to see a lot of good in humanity from this whole thing.
Well, yeah, and there's people there's certain cities and governments and counties. I mean, it goes, I believe it's statewide in California, but I don't think it's statewide here yet, but, they're helping people cover their rent.
Yeah.
They're putting a hold on their rent just for the time of being. If people are being evicted, they're not going to be evicted during this time. They're going to, let them stay put. If people are overdue on their electric or their gas, it's not going to get shut off. There's certain things that, have never really happened before. So.
Yeah, I've been seeing things like that as far as like the power and the water. I've been seeing stuff like that for about a week now. They've been discussing that, and I was like, okay, that's good. At least people in trouble will still be able to get their power if they've been lit on their bills already. Imagine if you hadn't been making your house payment already, and then now this comes. This would be a worst possible time to get kicked out. But this goes into one of the articles I have here pulled up. It says here, this is from Reuters, it's U.S. power industry may ask key employees to live at work if coronavirus worsens. Which,
wow.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, I think, to kind of keep people there and probably not getting sick anywhere. Because if you can't, there's certain people, you can't have them get sick. We need those people to constantly keep going there.
Well, on that note, too, I mean, I see... if doctors start getting sick, we start losing doctors left and right.
Yeah.
They're going to have to start, I don't put it past certain countries, even our own, to have people that aren't qualified to be necessarily doctors diagnosing these tests, and just have nurses that are CNNs or CNNs, CNAs or RNAs or I can't think of all the A's, but all these different nurses, phlebotomists and stuff like that. People that have been trained to just handle people and be sanitary.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be the ones that are learning to test people and hopefully not get sick. But there's also going to be a huge refusal of people too. Actually, even if, like in Italy with that many doctors getting sick, they're they're a month away or so. Like with people that are going to start saying, "No, I'm not going to work. You can't make me go there and get sick. I've just seen it. 2,000 people get sick." No.
Yeah, it's like being drafted into war at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I know for some of these places, I believe in the U.S. they're talking about doing this. I think in Italy as well, where they're taking late med students that have been studying for years, and they're coming up on their final test, and they're just having them skip the test completely and go straight into the field. Have you heard about that?
Not wrong, but I mean that's exactly what I was saying. I mean they got to start bullying people. I mean same with I wouldn't put it past as far as certain universities having Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, all the Fords, all the big schools, testing, like having making it a group project, being like, damn, help find a way to test or help find a cure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because there's a lot of complex classes. It's not like high school science class. These people have full blown labs and everything. So I'm sure we're going to start seeing a lot of those come together and figure it out.
Yeah, and maybe at some point, because I'm sure a lot of the stuff that happens in the hospital, like from a logistics perspective, is probably not too technical. There's probably a good amount of people that's just cleaning the bed sheets and just moving supplies around and shit like that. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing like them asking for help from just basically regular ass people and being like, if you can lend a hand and you've got the balls, then come here because we could use your help. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that at some point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I haven't seen, like I was saying, I haven't seen anybody, we haven't sent our doctors anywhere else, not that I've heard or seen.
Seen what?
We haven't sent any of our doctors out or any of our scientists out to other countries.
Oh, yeah.
Basically kept them here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of at every country for themselves, at least until we, oh man, who knows? Because, I mean, if a country really gets a handle on this, then maybe they'll be able to jump in and help. But for right now, for the foreseeable future, I see every country being fully caught up in their own shit for a while.
Well, I mean, they got car companies making respirators.
Yeah, Tesla. I heard that Tesla's going to be doing that or something.
Yeah, and you got, people that make alcohol making sanitizer and, sanitation spray and stuff. Like, it's just,
Just like World War II, dude.
Oh, dude, it's just like, instead of bullets, they're making sanitation products and just like trying to be on top.
All the car factories getting changed to like weapon factories, and I mean, whatever the moment demands, you got to be there to do it. Whatever it takes, especially times like this where it's such a dire and critical thing happening, And that's one thing I think we're going to see a good amount of is the whole community. Because I feel like society's been lacking that as a whole, kind of like a whole community or nation all focused on a singular goal. I feel like we haven't had anything like that in my whole lifetime, honestly. So there could be kind of somewhat of a good effect from that. Just the feeling that we're all in this together. We're all fighting this one thing. I know there's still a good amount of people that are in denial from this and think it's all a hoax, and who knows, maybe it is. Maybe the government's trying to do some fishy stuff. I'm not going to rule that out.
Hey, and we just sound dumb, but...
Yeah. But hopefully everyone gets on board and we all work together to defeat this thing. And this could potentially be the war of our lifetime.
Yeah, it's basically World War III, but every country fighting like from within their own country.
Yeah.
You know, it's essentially taking it to the extreme. I'm just curious now. I'm like, how many people? Hold on, let me just check this number before I sound too dumb.
Throwing shit out. Yeah, thank God that World War III is not being fought against human to human this time, at least. Human to virus. And who knows, maybe that effect will be kind of a worldwide thing where it kind of separates all our differences country to country, and we all, because what brings people better together than traumatic things? It's kind of a human characteristic to relate to people through trauma and to befriend people through traumatic things, whether that's a good or kind of a bad trait I could see in some scenarios, but it's definitely a human trait we have. And if we see other countries with huge losses of life and economies crashing and job losses, and that could potentially be something that brings us together as a world, especially Iran and Iraq and all these places that we have had bad relationships with, could potentially bring us all together after this. I see this potentially being a catalyst for a better future in the long term.
Well, I mean, that's something we hope for, because,
Yeah.
If anything, for there is going to be a specific, moment in time where, like as right now, where a lot of countries are stepping back from each other, and they're communicating, their numbers or whatever they say their numbers are. But if Italy gets a shipment of, 1 million face masks, they're not going to send them over to the United States. They're not going to send them anywhere else.
True, it could potentially have that effect too, where we all kind of stop helping each other. And I guess on the other side of the scale, something that I am genuinely worried about is, what if this escalates conflicts that exist right now? What if, this potentially initiates a real war? Because, war can be an act of desperation if we don't have the resources we need, if this, or potentially countries see weakness in other countries and they decide now is the time to take opportunity of that. I mean, this could go both ways, no doubt.
Well, and I essentially see a lot of these lockdowns that these countries are stating are going to be, they're saying 30-day lockdown. Okay, what happens if in 30 days, or even if you extend it, we'll say 90 days. Countries have 90 days realistically. That makes a little more sense, but so if you go that long and you get to the point where everything's under control in your country, you haven't had cases in 2 weeks and you get cases, you sanitize everything, like clean the entire country with a giant, Lysol can, and, after that, you're good to go. You're still going to keep your borders closed, but who's to tell you that homie next door doesn't have the virus still?
Exactly, dude.
Like, they're just going to be like, okay, like, we're clean. Keep everybody out. Nobody's allowed to leave. If you leave, you cannot come back.
This is why this is such a challenging problem to deal with, because even if you get it fully under control in your country, until it's fully in control across the whole world, things can't go back to normal. Or unless we get a mass vaccine and we get most of the population vaccinated, which at this point, I think that is the light at the tunnel, is the vaccine, because either we need to get 80, I think with something of an R naught of this high between 4 and 7, which for those of you who do not know, the R naught is the contagiousness rating, basically. The average number of people that this disease spreads to per person. So an R naught of 4, let's say, would mean that if I got it, then on average I would spread it to 4 other people, which you can see how that's going to go exponential real quick. So it's been stated that this is between 4 and 7 kind of naturally, but that's not a number that's attached to the virus. That's simply what happens. So if we implement strict measures to stop it, then the R naught is going to drop. So with something of an R naught this high, that the higher it is, the higher percentage of people need to be immune for the population to be considered to have herd immunity. And if you have herd immunity, that basically means that the virus can never get a foothold. You may have people getting sick every once in a while, but it can't spread like it is now, where there's no herd immunity whatsoever. So we either need to get that herd immunity of 80% with this virus, which means 80% of the population have gotten it, which, could be catastrophic in the amount of deaths that we can see, or we get a vaccine. I feel like this only really ends in those two scenarios, both of which are pretty distant.
And could you imagine forcing vaccination?
Yeah, that too. It's like, Jesus, you can't even trust these things anyway. I mean, I'm not like a vaccine conspiracy.
No, but I'm just saying there's a huge population that is. Don't get me wrong, I definitely don't get a flu shot. I haven't in 10 years, but that's just because I haven't gotten sick.
Yeah.
But, if it came down to it and that's what was required, as long as, I want to see somebody 6 months from having the antidote.
Yeah, make sure no one's turning into zombies.
Yeah, no, don't play me for a fool and be like, okay, cool, we found the cure. Everybody's got to get this shot after, only studying the people that get cured by it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Exactly. That's why it's 18 months minimum. Well, I guess 12 months absolute minimum. 18 months is still a very, very quick minimum, but like normally these vaccines take 3 years plus, because like you said, you don't want to just get something that seems like it works and then give it to everybody without having like a year of observation. Who knows how that thing could affect everybody.
Oh yeah.
Very sketchy. But yeah, that's I've heard you probably heard similar things, that this could potentially decrease in the summer. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I've heard that, but then I it's one of those things I just don't believe at all. It it does tend to go like that, but with it being, it's like, where was I? I was listening to somebody that was just saying, like, generally, like, if you stand outside in the sun and, like, for long enough, it would kill the virus. And I'm like, I just don't, if it's something that can live on something for 14 weeks, it's usually through most, or, a lot of different circumstances, unless you're washing it or completely sanitizing it. So
yeah, and you can't put sun on your inside organs. So I mean,
yeah,
in you, then I know.
And that's how you get it. That's you get it from inhaling or whatever. It goes in either through like your nasal cavity, your your ears, your mouth,
your eyes,
any of the other holes, your eyes.
Yeah. I know if it goes into your stomach, that's best case, because your bacteria will.
Yeah. That's exactly what they said. If it goes in your nose, and if you're in very like if you take like really hot showers and like just like try to like just, I don't know, that's what they're basically saying, like use everything hot water, hot shower, hot soap.
Yeah, I know for certain viruses, I know this is totally virus by virus, and we're still learning about this one, but with some of them, they definitely thrive in certain humidities and certain temperatures. So we're a little unsure of exactly what this one is going to look like, but as we progress, we're seeing this virus get a foothold in many countries across the world right now. Basically all of them. Like, for all intents and purposes, it's basically in every country in the world right now. So
yeah, we're just shy. You know what? We're 7 shy of every single country.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So that's basically everything. And if you consider that many of those countries probably don't have any testing, so. But yeah,
there's 195 countries and there's 188 infected.
This is just mind blowing. The stuff we're seeing in the countries where it's exploding. Like, imagine every single country going through that. Just the whole global economy being like, nothing like this has ever happened, I don't think.
Oh no, not in not in the last, I would say 200 years.
Yeah, I know the Spanish flu. Have you heard of the Spanish flu?
Yeah, the Spanish flu, Spanish plague or whatever.
Yeah, it happened in like 1918. Obviously, very different time, but I know it killed like 50 million plus people. But I don't know the exact effect. I don't know if it got everyone in the world, or I don't know too many more details besides that it did for sure kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have a couple more articles here, but I think we've been going so long, I don't really want to get too much into these. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we close out here?
No, just was looking up Spanish flu deaths just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I know they don't have exact numbers. I've heard like between 50 million and 150 million, but nobody seems to know for sure. Probably really hard to keep track.
11,000 for Ebola, but
yeah,
you've definitely got Ebola beat right there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, all of these, dude, like H1N1, I know infected millions of people, but it had such a low death rate. And then SARS only infected a little bit of people, but it had a super high death rate. And then this one we're on right now is kind of a medium death rate, but it's just extremely infectious.
Oh, I mean, you got to think. The Great Plague, how many people died in the Great Plague? Let's see this.
Like the bubonic plague, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. 100,000 people.
Okay.
Almost a quarter of London. Oh, so it said it was in London. So it killed 100,000 people in London.
Yeah, concentrated like that, and before populations were too big, I'm sure that was a huge amount of people.
And that's only in a 1 year period.
Oh my gosh. That was probably devastating, dude. You know what year that was?
1665 to 1666. Oh, I got that 666.
Oh, geez. Yeah, it's strange. I think like I've seen some memes that like in the around the Spanish flu was 1918, so that's basically 100 years ago. That was a huge flu, and I'm pretty sure that was another big pandemic about 100 years before that. I've seen some pretty strange things that seem to line up pretty good.
Yeah, I'm trying to like look at all the tragedies. I mean, it's like to put it in perspective, how many deaths do we have in the U.S. so far?
Yeah, we've only got a few thousand, but like, you know, the exponential thing, we could easily see 1 million deaths before this is over.
Oh, yeah, well beyond that, especially with, that's the thing, the amount of people that aren't being tested in those lower countries. And
yeah.
I mean, I've heard Iran digging mass graves.
Yeah.
You know,
up with that. All that.
If they're digging mass graves, they have a hell of a lot more dead for that reason. You know, and
I heard it in China. They had like several brand new crematories or whatever those things are called built, and then they were just running 24/7.
Then you got to think this on top of that. They're Italy. You can't have a funeral. Your name's in the paper. That's it.
Yeah.
And then your body's gone, and that's it. You know, because you can't sit on a body for too long, so that's how it is.
Yeah, very traumatic for people. I could see that. Yeah, I'm hoping. I personally don't know anyone that has it. I know some people that are sick and could potentially have it, but with the strict testing here in the U.S., you know, we may never know if they have it. They're probably, you know, like 90 whatever % of people are going to get over it just fine, but it hasn't really hit home for me yet. I'm really hoping I don't see any loss of life, obviously, and everyone listening to this. But yeah, I'm really hoping, or I really don't want to get it at all personally. It's so hard. Now that I'm trying to limit my contact with everything, it's so difficult. Like, you're getting mail, you're getting other people in your house, having people over, going to the store.
The small things make all the difference. When I go to the store, I wear gloves. People might give you shit for now, but in 2 weeks from now, everybody's going to be wearing gloves.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
ahead of the pack. I'll be the one to be the trend setter, you know?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I just made it a point to start leaving my shoes at the door. You know, just like things like that, like small things that do actually make a difference. Just as I get home, no matter what, come home, wash my hands. Lysol my phone. Like, it's just like,
Exactly.
get to eat good, I've been taking vitamins. Take your vitamins, vitamin C, iron, your multivitamins, and you gotta make sure you're eating good too. You can't just eat a bunch of crap. And I mean, the people that are in the best shape are getting in the best shape to, survive it and make it through and, not even get it.
Yeah, not even get it, or hopefully not see any of the bad sides of it.
Yeah, not show any symptoms,
Yeah, and I know, like, going along with that, I know getting sun, you really want to see if you can get at least like 15 minutes of sun every day.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to do that. Obviously being active, holding back on the sugar, which I love sugar, so really, really difficult for me to do. But yeah, all those little things.
Water.
Yeah, smoking, I know, is not a good thing for us. So if you're thinking about quitting, anyone listening to this, now would be the ideal time. I know
I've gotten pretty low, honestly. I've gotten it down to like 3 or 4 a day, so.
Oh, that's good to hear. Good to hear.
Definitely with the having to not want to have to stop at a gas station and get a pack of smokes, and I don't really want to buy a carton, so.
That too, yeah.
Just been puffing on a vape or whatever, and
yeah,
whatever you could do. Like you said, perfect time to quit. No better time. If anybody's getting money out of, or if anybody's getting money for no good reason, it would be those big tobacco companies.
Yeah, true. Hopefully, I haven't taken a look at their stocks. Hopefully, they're tanking.
I know.
Yeah, who knows? That's a lot of interesting effects that we're going to see from this whole thing. A lot of stocks will probably do good. Walmart and Costco and Smith's and Lysol and all that shit. But a lot of stocks we're not even thinking of will probably do really bad. That is just some weird side effect of this whole thing.
Oh yeah, you just never know. I mean, like yeah, I didn't even touch on that one. Jeez.
Yeah, so much.
There's a. This will be my last point, but there's with no sports, they haven't had anything to show on TV, and we're getting desperate. So with NASCAR, they actually have this. It's essentially like a video game, like an online, racing video game, but it's actually done like professionally, and like it has like a whole following, and it's just like you're in a car. It looks exactly like a car. You have to, you buy the whole thing.
Oh.
And they're getting to the point now. It's called e-racing, or iRacing, I think. But they're going to start just televising that. And there's drivers that do NASCAR that are going to race in that because that they just want to, keep racing. They don't want to get rusty.
Yeah, hype it up and get. I mean, if you saw, your favorite driver was racing in that, you'd be like, oh shit, I'll check this out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very interesting. That's one of those things. Maybe after this, that will still be a thing.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be the next thing.
And hockey's, they're talking about when they finish their season, just because they couldn't finish any of their seasons, or like none of the teams could finish or whatever. They're actually going to make it like a March Madness almost type deal.
Oh, so they're going to do the games later? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're going to do. But that's the thing, is every single team will be eligible. So if you're in dead last place right now, you could win the championship.
Oh, interesting.
They're gonna basically throw everybody's name on a bracket and go down and face each team against each other until there's 2 teams. That's going to be the championship one, and then.
Very interesting. I don't follow too many sports, but yeah, we're gonna see. Yeah, I've never just imagining this whole thing, and we're seeing such a huge disturbance in what we thought was our day-to-day life that would just never change. That's called the normalcy bias. We just feel it just feels so right that there's been so many days where everything's been normal for so long that we just assume that that's the only way it can be. And this virus is really showing us that everything can be shaken to its core and shown, in a way, a thought I've been having is it's almost more miraculous that everything continues on as normal than it is that everything could just stop. It's such a insane amount of work and energy that goes into making everyday normal life happen that it almost now that it's all being shaken, it's like, oh, of course this was all gonna. I don't want to say it's gonna happen eventually, but it almost just seems like yeah, it's just fragile, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll go ahead and end on that note. But it's been a awesome conversation, CJ. Yeah, like
Oh yeah, man.
really, really pleased with how this went. So let's definitely do this again. We were talking about doing weekly shows, but man, maybe we'll do every day, every other day, or
I was gonna say, yeah, we might even split it into two.
maybe I'll start editing. We'll see what happens.
But yeah, definitely, it's been a pleasure, and I definitely look forward to more. If anybody has any input or any comments,
Yeah,
feel free to throw them our way.
Yeah. Whoever's listening to this still made it to this point, send us any good names you got. And if you want to get on the podcast, feel free to either hit up me or CJ. But until next time, thanks for listening.
Yep, thanks, guys.